All right. Okay, cool. Um, so we were talking about last time we saw each other, but I'm curious to know where you are currently.
I'm
I
in
haven't
Los
seen you in a while.
still.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I'm in Los Angeles still.
Oh, cool. Okay.
hmm
How is that? What is that like now?
Well, I mean, yeah, LA is definitely a very powerful place of duality. You know what I'm saying? Like, in context of what's been happening this year, it's, there were some challenging moments where it's like, wow, I've never seen LA so quiet. Um, but, you know, it's home. A lot of my family's here and I feel at home, but I've always feeling the call to potentially live somewhere else. But, like I think every major city has been similar in context of like what's been going on and the challenges and, you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, my dad is in LA right now. Are you guys haven't opened up businesses yet, right?
Some opened the last couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
then some things may be reclosing, but businesses have been opening. I think what just reclosed is like some bars and stuff like that, and I think they might be closing the beach for 4th of July, which sucks because it's been open.
Yeah.
I'm very patriotic in the context of that holiday, but in the context of just going to the beach, it's been open the last couple of weeks, and people have been congregating down there, and that's been really nice because I feel like, to me, like being in nature is one of the healthiest things I can do for myself. Like, it's so strange to not be able to go into the hiking or to nature. It feels very malicious in context of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in LA because there's little of it compared to other places.
Well, surprisingly, to be honest, like there's so many amazing hikes in LA area that I'm still learning so many of them, but like within
Yeah.
an hour, either go into like the mountains or even like Palisades, there's some incredible, beautiful hikes that have been manifesting for me the last couple of years as I've been getting more and more into nature. But I hear you, like from the surface level, people don't think of LA like that.
Hmm.
But I'd love to hip you to some cool spots that are like pretty, like, I can't believe I'm in LA moments.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's places like, I can't believe I'm in LA County right now.
I can't believe it's LA. Like I can't believe it's not better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny where I am right now. I've never lived in a place like this, but it's sort of suburban, but it has like all these nature trails that just so like I guess because I'm in Washington now.
Oh, you're in
And
Washington.
yeah, and the place where I'm at, they place like a really high value on like having nature preserves. So there's a nature preserve right behind me, and then you can walk down the street, and there's another one, and it's like integrated into housing. I think they must have some like mandatory amount that they have to put in, which is pretty cool. But
Beautiful.
yeah, but yeah, I love LA. I mean, I was born in LA. Were you born in LA?
I was.
Yeah, yeah. It's just there's so much going on all the time. I remember just, not even knowing what I was going to do, on the weekend because there were like 6 different events going on at the same time. I would imagine it's a little bit different now. But
Yeah.
yeah. So and I listened to your new single, which was really awesome, which you seem to have put out pretty quickly, with I Can Breathe.
I Can Breathe. Yeah, I did that track with Kiyoshi.
Uh-huh.
And it's cool because, we're both obviously people of African descent. And I feel a lot of emotions came up for me during this last couple of weeks with protesting and things shifting. And I feel like, um, I have trauma in my family from like a lot of ancestral healing and things that have been racially motivated in myself. As a young person, I've been attacked by people because just how I look. And it's a really terrible feeling to go through. And I wish that upon nobody. And so when this started to occur, I think for a lot of people that have had trauma in their personal lives or in their family lineage, it was like an opportunity to face some things and do some like personal healing. And I think reaching out to Kiyoshi as like, we're both Geminis, we entered the Gemini cycle in May, and this started to jump off. I was like, man, I'd love to channel some of this energy with you into a creative space. And so we just went to the studio and just created that song, provided the beat by Taz Rashid, and we wanted to create an affirmation of I can breathe, not to disacknowledge people that are feeling empathy or compassion for those that have literally been unable to breathe because of police brutality, but just to create a narrative of like, you can't take my breath away. You feel me? Like, I'm a divine sovereign being, and I will breathe despite those malicious efforts in our world. And so, and at the same time in our song, we acknowledge that too, in a very visceral way too, some of the injustices. So it's like having the balance is really important for me as I've been growing as an artist, finding polarity in my music and finding a sense of, you know, being in touch with what's happening on the 3D, but also taking people to that next level of consciousness through the lyrics I write.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel within the like the community of, I don't know what would you call it? Would you call it like the conscious community in LA or the yoga community or like whatever? Like, how do you feel this situation, the, what would you call it, like the illumination of racism, the awakening to it? Like, what, how do you feel it's being treated, or like, how are you feeling in that context?
I feel in LA, that's a great question. LA is a very diverse city. You know, it's one of the most diverse cities probably in America. And I feel we've all appreciating culture here. And I feel like people in general, like, are experiencing a high level of acceptance. But of course, there's like people that feel that divide in energetics. And I feel there's definitely like a rallying around the sense of finding balance and finding solidarity. And I do feel a lot of the marches and protests have been very positive, even though there have been some negative things portrayed in the media. It's like we're living in times where there's a lot of different agendas taking place with our food, with our environment, with politics, with corporations, with even activism, where it's like there are things being manipulated that are meant to create separation because it's serving someone's agenda. So I always kind of like look at things from the space of duality, because I think duality is not to be construed with separation. Like, duality is the attribute of this world of earth. There's fire, there's water, there is love, there's light, and there is darkness. There's pain and there's joy. We come to earth to experience and find the yin and yang of both sides. And I feel like learning to embrace both facets of myself and the world has been very healthy. And I think I'm seeing people in LA rise to that challenge. And it's creating a space of acknowledging some of the emotions that we have to acknowledge. Like, how do we emerge into a new paradigm or a new world that we're wanting to co-create if we're not willing to acknowledge our own shit? So it's like, what's coming up is very necessary for the collective, and I feel it's very healthy when looked at in a constructive way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So you feel like as a whole it's being heard.
Well, I think around the world the voices are being heard, and regardless of who's pulling the strings on certain things. I've heard a lot of different theories about a lot of different things, but I feel the feeling that I've experienced as a person of color that's gone through racial injustice in my life, from just people like driving by calling me racial slurs, like things like that, or getting in fights because of who I am. Like, I feel the healing that I'm going through that other people are experiencing is real. And I feel what's being expressed and acknowledged is what's coming up for us to resolve, whether it's in context to racial issues or health issues with the coronavirus, or just what people believe what's happening in this particular time and age spiritually. There's a lot of different things playing out that are meant for us to look at. So I'm always a provider where it's like, whatever's coming up for you, regardless of your skin tone or cultural background, that's what's meant for you to look at. Like, if it's resentment, okay, look at that. If it's hate, look at that. If it's like feeling shame, then look at that. If it's a part of some people that don't know what to do or how to make a difference, I think it's very powerful to look at that. Like, whatever's coming up for all of us is meant to be looked at and seen, you know?
Yeah. I had the most amazing experience this week of going to Idaho for the first time, where my mom is from, and where she kind of escaped because for these sorts of reasons, her first husband was Haitian, and I guess she just felt like she wouldn't be accepted or something. But for whatever reason, she never introduced me to her family in Idaho. And she married a Jewish man. And I remember her like anxiety around, because I lived in France growing up, but her anxiety of people discovering that we had Jewish background and having to pass as like, she gave us like little crosses and stuff it was so, in the context of what's going on right now, I was thinking like, that's a really weird sort of shame to carry around, about your own ancestry or about your own children, but that she felt was necessary as sort of a protection, which I kind of parallel to what's, it's not exactly the same thing, but I think that it has to do with tolerance and with people's minds not being open enough to, to see the person.
Yeah. It's interesting you said shame, because for me, I think for all of us and for myself, that's been my biggest teacher this year. If someone were to ask me, what's been your greatest teacher this year, I would say shame. And I think some people might be like, well, what does that mean? Like, how can shame teach you? Because it seems like a very quote unquote negative attribute. But I look at, like Rumi says, we invite all the emotions into our house as guests. And like, can we sit with them and learn from them and grow from them and know that they're just passing through? And so again, that's what came up for me during a lot of this protests and things that were showing on the news, is my own shame regarding my identity being a mixed person and how I've been put down and things of that nature. And I feel like if we look at everything as our enemy, whether it's shame or anger or jealousy or hatred or whatever the emotion is, then we're never going to grow from it, because we're always creating resistance. We're always pushing it away. We're withdrawing from the things that feel uncomfortable. And we're judging them because we're labeling them good and bad and right or wrong. But for me, I've been practicing moving beyond good and bad and right or wrong. Like Rumi says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. So to practice not labeling my emotions good, bad, right, or wrong, but just like, okay, like I see you. I know that you're a part of me that's showing up for my inner child that wants to be resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And like not making an enemy out of shame or anger or frustration or whatever it is, and like befriending it and learning to grow from it. And I feel like that's the healing that will allow us to transcend as humanity. It's the space of embracing the darkness and shadow and realizing that we have to become the alchemist, like Pablo Coelho says. And so, yeah, I think whatever's showing up for us is a powerful teacher. And I feel like we're done with pushing things away. It's time to really embrace ourselves and not run away from the things that feel uncomfortable anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, shame is such a big one, because it's like I feel like it's the main type of resistance that comes up with emotions. Like, I don't want to feel that way. So I add shame to that feeling, which doesn't improve it. It sort of compounds it. And then, you're looking at several generations of compounding, and I feel like we're all kind of dealing with that right now, that running away from emotion, basically.
Yeah, I've found that we can experience shame, and again, in a moment, like we can feel someone shaming us because of what they say or do, or we apply that energy onto ourselves because what we're feeling. But I feel like what happens the most, maybe then even those two, is that we're so afraid of the fear of shame that will inhibit us from even expressing. Like, for example, having the fear of going on a stage to share my song, because I'm so afraid of what others are going to think about me that it'll actually inhibit me from going on the stage and sharing my voice in the song. So I feel like the fear of shame, even though it's not actually present, sometimes can be more destructive than actually feeling shame.
Yeah. That I liked what you said about the I can't breathe versus the I can breathe, because I love that you validated the emotion behind, that I can't breathe, and then your song obviously is well, maybe you could talk about that, but I really like that, because I feel like the emotion of I can't breathe, I mean, that's really real for the people who are expressing it to them, in that 3D way that you're talking about, but you're seeing something else too.
Yeah, I think that intentionally, it's like I acknowledge that it's messed up that like George Floyd was killed because his knee was put to his neck, and even Kyoshi mentions that in the song. But it's like we have to be mindful what are we affirming as well as an individual and collectively. And like I think it's powerful to have empathy and compassion for those that physically have not been able to breathe because of police brutality, especially. And at the same time, like, yo, I'm taking my breath back. I'm taking my power back. I'm not going to just stay in the victim space. I'm going to acknowledge the injustices, but also find the strength to like affirm my breath, my life, my existence. I am. you know, beyond mattering. I'm like beautiful, holy, sacred, like divine. You feel me? So I feel like there's a power. It's just a balance. It's like we're trying to co-create balance through art form. And again, yeah, it's not to disacknowledge anybody. Like, I think it's so powerful to acknowledge all the crazy shit happening in the world, in ourselves and externally, because that's how we grow from it. We have to acknowledge what is in order to move forward. And so our ability to do that is very crucial in this time where it seems like everything is in chaos. Every aspect of our life, it feels like in 2020 is in peril, or there's an unknown to it. So really important to do alchemy.
Yeah, there's a liberating sense when everything seems to be falling apart. It's like, oh, I can be something completely different in this space because there's less at stake, there's less I can break. There's, there's less toes that I could be possibly stepping on. Um, I so I know DJ Taz Rashid from as like an staff member at Bhakti Fest.
Mm,
And I just noticed like a few months ago that he's like really killing it
yeah.
as a DJ, and I didn't even know he did that. So how did you connect with him?
We connected because I heard he was doing events called Club Divine in Chicago many years ago. And at that
Uh-huh.
time, I wasn't DJing either. But I'll say this, it's a great example. Taz has always had a beautiful charisma to him,
Yeah.
and a beautiful spirit and a beautiful communicator. And I think when we're aligned with our intention of who and what we really are on a vibratory level, beyond just intellectually, we can step into different modalities of expression and be completely in alignment and rock it out. So I feel like Taz has always felt connected to music, but when he started DJing, it took off because he just carried his intention, even though he was doing other live music and different events, into this new form of expression that started to create movement. And I feel the same way about myself. Like I started off just rapping and creating poetry, then it turned into songs, and then I started singing a little bit, and then I started throwing events. Now I DJ as well. I DJ Ecstatic Dance, and now I do coaching work with people. And okay, now what's next? So maybe I'll do a podcast. Like, it never stops. Like, we sometimes get so fixated on the form of expression, but in reality, I feel like our purpose is one and the same. We're here to awaken to our divine nature. We're here to express our gifts, and we're here to be in service. Like, that's to me why humans are here. But what makes us unique as individuals is that we all have these different forms of expression. Like, you may do Kundalini, I may do yoga, that person does meditation, that person does music, that person does dance, that person does fire spinning arts, this person's an architect, this person's a marketer. Like, there's so many ways we express, and that's how we individually stand out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel our purpose is one and the same, and it's really cool to see Taz stepping into his expression and just traversing from one expression to another and finding success.
Yeah. So you do this remotely, I'm assuming, with him. Like you have a virtual collaboration?
I have a studio in Santa Monica that I work out of physically, and he sent me the track. So it was a song that he made called Love Me, I think a few years ago, actually. But he felt the resonance of that music with the times and what our intention was to write about. And so, yeah, he remotely sent me the track. We sent him back the vocals. He helped mix it, and then it is what it is. And the video's coming out soon. We wanted to drop the video the same day the song came out, about a week and a half ago or so, but we just wanted to do one more round of edits to really make it special. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful practice as an artist. Can you be in a space of discernment without judgment and not shaming ourselves and be like, it just needs a few more days. Like, it's cool. Like, we can wait to put the video out next. So stay tuned for the video. It's really powerful. A friend of ours, Megan Pagoda, is creating it, and she's a really special person.
Oh, cool. Well, by the time this gets published, they'll probably be out, so I can include the link if you send it to me.
Well, it's out now. So
yeah.
Click it.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. And I've heard strategically it's better to release the video a little bit after you drop the single anyway, because it's like a new thing you can get excited about. So my
cool.
It worked out in more ways than one. Yeah. So do you record other people at the studio in Santa Monica?
I do, and that's another thing that's been happening too, because I work out of my brother Conscious Studio space. Daniel Conscious Krieger, the space is called Studios, and his space went from one room to multiple rooms, and I rent one of the smaller spaces. And it's been really empowering to have my own space as an artist to go to. I feel like it's specifically made for creative expression, whether live or recording or otherwise. And because, you know, I work from home too, but I feel like having a space where it's like I don't have to like be distracted by the things around me in my home. I'm there to work. And I think every creator having their own kind of work shed per se is really important. So that's been really expanding me to work on my own music. But also, yeah, there have been situations where I've taken on projects for other people, currently working with my partner, Lotus Grace, and her making her first album, which is really exciting because like I'm in partnership with another musician that's so, I love her music. It's not like, oh, I want to help you just because I love you. It's like, no, I really love your music, your songwriting. I love when we co-create. So to help her, especially in these last few months, to get her music off the ground and share her gifts has been so fulfilling for me as a man, and so fulfilling for me to know that her music is going to touch a lot of people. And just really honored to just be in service, you know, keep that energy reciprocated and pay it forward.
That's really cool. Do you feel like your life sort of how should I put it, like sort of float in a way that made it kind of seamless to transition into being mostly in your own space, you know, because of COVID, like we're all sort of homeschooling, home working, you know, all this stuff. Do you feel like that was a pretty seamless transition for you?
You know, as I've gotten older, it's been such a beautiful embracing of my Gemini polarities, because when I was younger, I was so attracted to the part of myself that was very young and expressive and communicative. And I would kind of push away the part of me that was very yin and like introverted and needed space and all that stuff. But as I've grown and grown and grown, I've learned to embrace both polarities. And so it's funny because I had so many shows booked through the spring and summer and even in the fall that we're going to make this a very abundant and lucrative year, and also create a lot of opportunities, of course, to be in service. But like many artists, all of my shows got canceled, like literally everything, and all the finances shifted. So I went to a space of just like, okay, well, this is what the universe is bringing me now. Let me just embrace this. So I just decided to spend time with my partner, my son, and really just embrace being at home and embrace this kind of introverted healing time for myself. And again, like I was saying, since May hit and things started to shift a little bit and see people started to come out a little more in LA, that was my inner guidance as a Gemini. My birthday's coming to pass, to just step into my expression again. So I've been offering online workshops. I did my first one in June. I'm doing another one July 11th with my partner. We're going to definitely do another one sometime mid-August. And just having I feel really aligned with that. I didn't feel as aligned to do a lot of online performances, even though I was offered a lot. But doing online coaching and online workshops feels really resonant with the platform that we've been using. And so just definitely check on me for that too, y'all. Like,
Yeah. How do people find out about that?
Just probably through my Instagram, jbrave1 or jbrave.net. I'm posting on there.
Okay. I'll share that too. Yeah, that's awesome. The that happened for me a little bit too with music lessons, which I was actually kind of resistant to, because I've never wanted to teach music, because it was never something that was really taught to me. I don't know what your background on it is. That like, are you someone that took a lot of music lessons, or was it something just kind of you found?
You know, it's funny because I started writing poetry when I got into like middle school and high school, and my father passed when I was 11. So for me, my first poetry was actually inspired. I was listening to Tupac a lot, and the Dear Mama, Me Against the World was like one of the first CDs I ever owned, and the song in there was called Dear Mama, which was like an ode to his mother. And I remember feeling so inspired by that song. Like I literally felt so inspired that I started writing, because I felt an affinity to what he sang. Growing up in a difficult situation, like how there was drugs in the house, you know, his father wasn't around. I felt such an affinity to what he was saying pertaining to my story that it inspired me to write. And so for me, poetry and writing lyrics when I was in middle school and in high school was like for me to heal. Like it wasn't like, oh, I want to get out here and be a celebrity star, this and that. Those things started to come later as I grew. But I think at first it was just like healing. And I think for me, it was just a sense of being able to convey my emotions in a safe space.
I'm taking notes. Yeah, I feel that. I actually did a similar thing, not from a death, but having a rough kind of middle school, high school. Um, and yeah, it's sort of to the point of what we were talking about before about emotions and really feeling all of them. Because I don't think that I would have needed to become a musician if I hadn't had these like really big emotions that needed a different kind of expression than just, you know, being and doing homework, you know. So yeah. So that your poetry evolved into music at some point?
Yeah, I think as high school started to like formulate ideas, and even in early stages of college in my 19, 20 years old, started to write and formulate songs. And it took a little while before I could like begin to show them. Like I didn't perform publicly until I was 22. I went
Yeah.
to an open mic in Hollywood, and that was the first time I ever like got on the stage on the microphone and like shared something in a like kind of a more poetry song way. And so I feel like it took a little while to muster up the strength and courage to do that. But even in that moment, felt so much fear and anxiety and shame. And I remember, you know, signing up at the end of the list. I remember getting off stage feeling so like judging myself and self-conscious. And I remember telling myself, I'm never going to do that again. Like, I'm never going to get on that stage again. That was terrible. That's so terrible. And I remember like walking back to my seat feeling like completely defeated. And this guy came up to me randomly, kind of inebriated, grabbed me by the shoulders, like looked me square in the eye and was like, bro, like whatever you do, don't ever stop. Don't ever quit.
Huh.
Just keep going. You have something really powerful to share. Keep going. And I like was so startled because I didn't know who this person was. And it was like in hindsight, he was an angel, really. You know, he was an angel. I don't know who that person was, but I remember his face. And for a kid that grew up without a dad, and the kid that grew up with not a lot of male role models in his house around him, to have someone just basically say, I believe in you, like meant a lot to me. And so I feel like I love sharing that story because we never know the impact we're going to have in someone's life. Like I remember that man from almost 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? And like, we may say something to somebody in the street or like a workshop or even this conversation we're having or just anywhere we are that can make a huge impact on someone's life. And so I feel like we have to always remember that. Like, cause I remember that guy, even though I don't know who that person was, and he's stayed with me my whole life because he said something kind to me and encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a great example for all of us. Like never take for granted the impact we can make on somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was brave enough to say it because he could have second guessed himself and been like, oh, maybe he'll think I'm this or that or whatever. Yeah, that's awesome. There's yeah, it's awesome to be that person for people, and I think probably often we don't realize that our presence means anything to people, only in like a few instances probably. And yeah, I was listening to one of my teachers talk about the impact that we have for just being here, you know, not even like, you don't know how you affected the person crossing the street just by being there. That we all play such a unique and wonderful part in this tapestry. That's really cool. So after he encouraged you, did you do more live stuff or was it a while?
Well, it's funny because I feel like within a year or so, I was valeting cars at the time in LA at this kind of luxury apartment complex on Wilshire. And I had this graveyard shift from like midnight to 7 in the morning type thing. It was really crazy taking on this job. And I was driving all these fancy cars. And like, it was like just for like a private complex, like for people that live there. But the garage was small, so people needed help to actually park the vehicles properly. And my friend Free, who is a member of Luminaries, was like at the time working in social services with at-risk youth, and he's like, "Man, I just got a new job, and they're trying to fill my position. I think I want to refer you." And at first I was reluctant because I was like, "No, I got a job. I'm cool. I don't need to like do that kind of stuff." He's like, "Bro, like this would be really powerful for you." And so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go interview." And I went and interviewed, and I had no experience doing it. I had no degree in anything, but they just loved who I was. And that began my career as like a full-time youth mentor, 40 hours a week working with homeless and at-risk kids between the ages of 14 and 24. They were living in the street, living in abandoned buildings, living in shelters, in and out of foster care, in and out of jails. Young people that were like prostituting, gang banging, selling drugs, pimping themselves, pimping other kids. Like the whole street culture, like, you know, and it taught me a lot because I began to realize that my role wasn't to judge anyone for what they're going through, even though some person may be that same night they may be robbing somebody to eat, you feel me, or selling drugs or whatever. It's not my role to judge who they are. It's my role to be a difference in their life unconditionally. And I feel it taught me so much about myself to reflect what they've gone through and how it paralleled some of the things I went through as a kid. So it's a very healing experience to be in service in a way where I'm practicing unconditional love. And I feel like that same mentality of who I was being transitioned into my music. And ironically, in context of the story about the open mic, I ended up hosting my own open mic. And that was my first event I started to grow. This like low-key reggae club in Hollywood called the Firehouse. And so I was like hosting every Thursday the open mic there. And that was my first stage to kind of like share my stuff and feel confident in myself. And it's cool how things come full circle, but we're still going.
Did the stories that they were telling you shock you, or is it stuff you had heard before that you were expecting, or how did you feel?
I mean, both. Some of the things that shocked me were to find that it's really important for us to realize that most people that are homeless started off as a homeless teenager. We may see someone who's 40 or 50 and be like, how come this person's out here? They seem capable, la, la, la. But they may have been on the streets for 10, 20 years. And we're just seeing a glimpse of who they are now. But when I would see young people that are 15, 16, 17 runaways, and then see them continuously grow and like be involved with the system and be in the streets and stuff like that, you realize, wow, like some of these young people have been out here for like a long time. Then they just become adults. And what shocked me was that most of the time people become homeless because they've been sexually abused at home, physically abused at home, or they've been ousted from their community or family because of their sexual orientation. And I feel to learn that and to understand some of the stories behind why some people become homeless was so powerful for me to have a different vision of why society is the way it is. And like some people just have gone through horrendous stories that have created cathartic trauma in their lives they're only operating from that space. And so I feel like most people that are on the streets, it's not because of money or lack of job or lack of resources, because they're trying to heal or not being able to heal some really cathartic trauma that they've gone through in their lives and in some form of abuse often. And I feel learning about that grew my compassion deeply for the world and made me understand things on a much more empowered level.
So you would have sort of just deep conversations with them individually or in groups, and was that how it?
Yeah, it was my role to build rapport as a counselor. Like my role in the drop-in center, we provided food, shelter, a safe haven for people to come, hang out, play games, like connect socially. Where under complete confidentiality, they can come and just like drop in and connect. And we didn't have shelter there, but we would refer them to different shelters and different places within the network where they could maybe stay if they needed something like that. And so it was definitely, just my role to build rapport, connect with them and learn about them. And when they felt like they can open up and they felt safe, that's when a lot of breakthroughs would occur. But it took some time, you know, no one wants to come in and just share their life story with someone they just met.
Right.
And I feel like it took time.
Especially in that situation, yeah.
Yeah, you know, because they may have been they're running away or whatever has happened. Sometimes it takes some time for them to open up. And so it taught me a lot of interpersonal skills with people and how to like hold the space, and which is what I do now with my coaching work. You know, it taught me so much how to hold space and put that into practice.
Do you want to talk about what you do as a coach? I'm curious.
Yeah. My theme of my coaching work is discover your sacred offering. And I feel like I was sharing before, we're all here to awaken to our divine nature, express our gifts, and being service. And so for me as an artist, I realized, wow, everyone has something to express. And people would often come up to me after shows like, I'm so inspired by what you're saying, and I just don't know. I've always felt like I wanted to share something, but I'm not sure. Or people would come up and say like, can I rap for you? Can I share my poetry? And I feel like there's a part of us when we feel or see someone that's in their full power of expression, we want to be in that, you know what I mean? We want to feel that same feeling. And I feel it's a very natural human thing. And so for me to like theme it as such is really about, you know, helping people move through blocks, look at challenges differently, support people in the space where they can feel, like I was sharing earlier, like, can we embrace our challenges and our emotions and not label them, but actually learn to cultivate a relationship with our fears, our shame, our jealousy, our anger, whatever is revealing itself, so we can move through it and be expressed. Because those are usually the things that are inhibiting us from being fully expressed. And my role is to help guide someone through the process of seeing that in a healthy way, and find a resolution to just reveal who they already are. Because I feel like we're already who we are meant to be. It's just the shit that's blocking us, that's inhibiting us from expressing it.
Mm. Do you feel like, I find like, for example, like one session generally, you can't do a ton in one session. I mean, you can do something in one session, but do you have like a number of sessions that you ideally do with somebody, or like a program or something?
Yeah, so especially because of this, it created the catalyst, what's been happening in the world, to create the catalyst for me to do monthly workshops. The next one I'm doing with my partner, Lotus, is called Remembrance. So I'm bringing in all the same things that I do coaching with, but it's just we wanted to theme it differently as a reflection of both of our amazing offerings. Meditation and some exercises and some sharing and some things of that nature. So those are just kind of like 2-hour, like kind of like teasers, almost not teasers, but just, you know, to sit for like to get a understanding of the offering and the work we do. And then when I do one-on-one stuff, it's an 8-week commitment at minimum. It's like an 8-week or 8-session course, which I'll have a lesson plan and format so we can move through different layers of the person's experience to ultimately get to some deeper reflection level. And by no means am I like, oh, at the end of this, you're going to be whatever. It's just more like, some people do it and they want to do 8 more. You know, I've done that. Some people do it and feel complete with the work. So it's always like, how far do you want to go? But hopefully within that span, we do have a nice understanding of what's, usually we can at least see like what's inhibiting someone from really being who they really are.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the program that I help out with is also 8 weeks. I wonder if there's a magic to 8 weeks, but there seems to be. Oh yeah. Yeah. And the choosing to do it again. I mean, that makes sense. I think I know I've gone through programs and been like, oh, okay, I didn't, you know, I think I could review that, you know. Yeah. There's always something more to incorporate.
Yeah.
So where are you, how are they finding you?
I think I'm probably most active on Instagram as far as my public, just like checking in with the world type thing. I'm on, you know, I shoot my stuff to Facebook sometimes too, but I just feel like a resonance with that particular platform right now. And oftentimes people are message me or, you know, hear my music or, you know, we create a connection and I just share, hey, this is what I'm offering. You want to check it out? And I think what's cool about coaches, there's never going to be an excess of coaches in the world. There's never going to be an excess of spiritual tools or workshops or yoga or meditation or kundalini, because we're always going to be, it's not like a fad. Like awakening is not like, oh, remember what we used to wear in the 80s clothing wise? Awakening is going to be an ever expanding thing that we all must go through in life, in my opinion. So I don't think there can ever be an excess of people trying to make a difference as far as help others along the path. And like you were saying earlier about, you know, you had to learn how to teach music lessons. I feel it's a natural evolution on our spiritual journey that each of us ultimately will become a teacher. Knowing that it's always a reciprocal exchange. That's the first thing I always share with my clients. It's never like I'm the guru and I'm just giving you insight just as a terminology. I look at it more like we're each other's guides and teachers on this path, and we're giving each other the insights to grow. And I leave every single session I do, I leave it feeling incredibly expanded and inspired after every session I do with somebody. So they teach me just as much as I teach them. And I look at it like, you know, we just have certain people that we feel resonance with in the context of certain guides in our lives. We may feel an attraction to someone and feel like, wow, I want to work with them versus with this person because there's some innate chemistry or attraction. So I think the more people that feel called to teach, the better. All hands on deck.
Oh, I like that. That's a really great, I think that's a really essential thing that you said, that there's never going to be an excess of coaches or of teachers. I mean, because I feel like that is one of those limiting beliefs that go, or like negative self-talk that we have in our head, like, well, who am I to teach? There's already so many teachers. Or who am I to be a musician? There's already so many musicians, you know. And I mean, I think that our world is showing us that an abundance of everything is useful. I mean, I think about the number of people releasing new music now is just, it's beyond what I can comprehend. And yet people are listening to them. There is an audience. Yeah.
A lot of people on the earth.
Yeah.
8.5 billion or something is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of ears. A lot of ears, a lot of hearts. Are you still doing stuff with the Luminaries?
We are. We took like a major hiatus over a couple of years, and people just grew and became fathers and had kids and moved and all the things that humans go through. And for me, you know, putting out my record in 2017 was a big thing for me as an individual. Like, can I share my music in the way that I feel resonant as an individual, and finding that balance within myself. And I feel like a lot of the vocalists in the group did that too. So, but we've been corresponding this year, and we've been like, yo, we have some music that's been unreleased that I feel will be really beautiful timing to put out something. So it's definitely an intention of ours to reemerge as a collective and put out some music. And inshallah, hopefully it all comes into alignment, God willing, in context of what's happening in the world and all of our individual schedules. But we're in communication. I love those brothers.
Yeah, you guys make great music.
Thank you.
Yeah. I remember when I last saw you, actually, when it was in Phoenix, we were talking about that. You guys had just come back from Israel, I think. Does that sound right? Or were you going there? One of the two, which was interesting to me. That's an interesting place to me, Israel. I've never been there, but I remember you saying that was a pretty cool experience. Do you have like a favorite place that you've ever been?
Ever? Wow.
Like performing?
Well, there's been a lot of cool places I've been. Definitely going to Palestine and Israel is very special, because that came out of the blue. Someone saw our Be the Change video and was like, wow, we're going down there as a delegation to kind of try to create peace and unity amongst the Palestinian and Israeli people and connect it to their city in Gainesville, Florida. And so having the opportunity was a huge blessing and a very humbling experience. And to be able to be in service in such a unique place was really powerful and transformative. And also some cool places I've been to, Bali, Indonesia, that comes to mind. That was a very fun experience to perform in Bali. Also went to Chichen Itza, Mexico, which is the center of the Mayan universe, the Mayan pyramids.
Oh, cool.
And that was a very profound experience to be there in December 21st, 2012, which is like the end of the Mayan calendar per se. So that was a very profound experience. And just, yeah, I don't know, like I've been to a lot of the major states in America performing, and I've been to a lot of places around the world to share music. Canada's cool too. Toronto's an amazing place. Yeah, I don't have a definitive one, but I guess those experiences come up to mind for sure.
Yeah. Do you know what the end of the Mayan calendar means?
Well, it's just supposedly when the calendar was like complete. And so in that context, that it was when, I don't think it necessarily meant the end of the world per se. Maybe we took it as that.
I think some people interpreted it that way. Yeah.
Some people believe that we're in 2012 right now. I mean, I've heard the theory that we were, that, you know, because of the Gregorian calendar, because of our confusion of time, that we're actually in that cycle now, hence why we're going through so many crazy changes.
Okay.
So I do think cycles are completing. I do feel like the veil is being lifted up, which is the definition of apocalypse, lifting of the veil. And so I do feel these times are meant to reveal things, like I was saying, within ourselves. We have to acknowledge within ourselves these different pains and emotions in order to heal them. And in the same way, in the collective, things have to show up in order for us to come to resolution. So it feels like we're in it.
It's a continuous end.
Yes.
That's cool. And I was thinking about that because when I was living in LA, there were a lot of like sort of soft end of the world stories going on, you know, like we were going to shift into a new dimension, or the end of the mind. I remember all these stories being told, and then I sort of forgot about them. But when you mentioned the end of the Mayan calendar, I was like, I wonder like what phase we're in for the Mayans right now. Like, are we in the after time? Is there a new calendar that begins? Fun stuff to think about.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if we're actually on the Mayan calendar timeline right now, it makes a lot of sense in context of what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And so, to me, when coronavirus hit, I felt fear. I felt like a little anxiety. My thought was like, is this the time where I actually get out of LA and escape and go somewhere like Costa Rica or whatever, like, these different places I mentioned where they maybe could be more physically safe. Then I thought to myself, you know what? Like, you just have to be in your spirit and trust that wherever I am is where I'm meant to be. And if I feel called to go somewhere, then cool. But like, I want to operate from a space of, I know that my spirit is infinite and divine and indomitable. And so, like, it's not to condone physical things that happen to myself or anyone else, but just to like reaffirm that I am spirit and this body is temporary, and whatever is occurring is meant to occur for like multiple levels of transformation. So it's a practice,
Yeah. It's this year has been very challenging in a great way, and I think it has. I didn't realize that was the definition of apocalypse. That makes a lot of sense. The lifting of the veil. Yeah. The year of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will put your links down below the podcast link, and I'll let you know when this comes out. Thank you so much for meeting with me like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, and wishing you much success in amplifying the voices of other artists.
Thank you.
Service with your gifts.
Yeah, this has been my favorite thing I think that I've done so far, is talking with other artists. It's been so inspiring, and you are so inspiring. So thank you for doing what you do. I've been watching you, through the years, and it's really, really awesome to see you grow and what you do and what you offer. So awesome. Have a wonderful day, and have great workshops.
Thank you. You too. Blessings.
Blessings.
Bye
Bye.
now.
Bye now.